Wonderful. So welcome to the Truth Unveiled tape group, the last meeting of this series, and today's Transcendental consciousness. And we're listening to Joel. We're examining or discovering the idea of impartations of truth. And that's the part that spoke to me in Joel's talk. So in the preparation for the video that we're going to listen to, I will share a bit about that. It is very inspiring, so I could easily share with you a lot about it, because it's coming back. The impartations of spirit are coming back continuously. That's not the point, so to speak, but what are you doing with the impartations? So that has everything to do with applying what you learn. What are you sowing is what you reap, right? So we know this, and still interesting to look at it and to be conscious of it, what you do with that. So welcome everyone, great that you're here, happy that you made it, and we're starting with a meditation, and that's from my favorite book of Joel, with parenthesis in eternity, and also a very specific part of it, and very lovely. Great opportunity to become still, to open our consciousness, to in fact come to a place where our ideas obviously are meaningless, and to come to a deep acceptance of what is. There's the invitation, of course. So that's a real happening. And I always emphasize that, because it's like that's where something can happen. If you're busy with all kinds of ideas, then not much will happen. Now you're still and you sink deep into that stillness. Now something can happen, because you're actually opening your consciousness to what already is. And that's where really something happens, or is, in fact. And so that's great. Nothing can establish permanent peace in the heart of an individual except the entrance into that heart of the Christ, the Spirit of God. As peace is established in the heart of the individual, ultimately it will be established in the world. A peace that comes not by the knowledge of man, nor by the wisdom or power of man, but by the Spirit of God functioning as the consciousness of man. The Spirit which God has planted in the midst of each one of us seems to be absent because of our ignorance of its presence. But when we become aware of this invisible, transcendental presence as ourself, in that moment does it begin to function in our experience. We then become something more than creatures sentenced to earn our living by the sweat of our brow, or to bring forth children in pain and suffering. No more are we separate and apart from God.
La présence transcendantale. Rien ne peut établir une paix permanente dans le cœur d'un individu, sauf l'entrée dans ce cœur du Christ, l'Esprit de Dieu. Quand la paix sera établie dans le cœur de l'individu, elle sera finalement établie dans le monde. Une paix qui ne viendra pas de la connaissance de l'homme, ni de la sagesse ou du pouvoir de l'homme, mais de l'Esprit de Dieu, fonctionnant en tant que la conscience de l'homme. Cet esprit que Dieu a planté au milieu de chacun de nous semble être absent à cause de notre ignorance de sa présence. Mais quand nous devenons conscients de cette présence invisible, transcendante en tant que notre individualité, dès ce moment, elle commence à agir dans notre expérience. Nous devenons alors quelque chose de plus que les créatures condamnées à gagner leur pain à la sueur de leur front ou à mettre au monde des enfants dans la douleur et la souffrance. Nous ne sommes plus séparés et distincts de Dieu.
All right. Thank you for joining in the meditation. So we are preparing, you could say, to listen to Joel. Does that need preparation? No, not really. But it is can be helpful to take a look at certain expressions that he has in this talk, so that when you come back to it, in fact, by listening to Joel, you can have a different recognition. So that's why this is occurring. And so now today, Impartations of Spirit. And since this started, Truth Unveiled started with, in fact, with Joel going through all kinds of phases in ascending, in resurrection, in, say, describing this more and more like his own expressions. So the impartations of truth, of spirit, is also part of that. Now, you can take a look at that in different ways, and I'm going to use two ways to look at it, and also the application of impartations of spirit. Now, the two ways to look at this is, okay, here's the teacher, he's expressing himself, he had impartations of spirit, and something came to him to share, and that's why he is sharing it. This is what Joel refers to in Impartations of Spirit many times. Basically, only emphasizing, a lot of it is emphasizing that it's not about the great idea of the teacher, but it's actually about the application of the student of that idea. Like, I can share as many ideas as I want, but if you don't, say, receive it and actually use it in your activities, then we keep circulating and keep doing the same thing over and over. Now, that's the classical view of impartations in a teacher-student setup. I look at it a little different, and I want to share that with you because I see it at work. That's why I can share it. That was imparted to me too, by Spirit, of course. So we go into physics a little bit. So here's quantum physics. Now, you don't have to be an expert in order to hear this, what I'm saying. So in quantum physics, there's such thing as an idea of entanglement. That means two particles meet each other, And they can be so far away from each other, but they respond in the same way to a certain stimulus. That can mean, like, I get my particle here, some particles in New York or wherever across the Atlantic. I do something with this particle, and that particle responds at the same time in the same way because they collided, they met, they communicate together. Now, this is a bit how I look at impartations, because impartations of spirit changes the setup, the frequency, you could say. It changes. It is information coming into the system. And the system, I use that word, but in fact, we communicate as one, or we don't communicate. That's another thing. So it's like you have met. We have met. That's why you're here. That's why you're listening to this. There has been a collision, you could say. There was an encounter. Suddenly something was shaken up in your experience of yourself, that you know, like, oh yeah, this is that guy. Oh yeah, wait, let me listen to that. Or who knows what. I just say it as an example. So the impartations of spirit can be like this. It's like, I received that. I know. So for this meeting that we have, I received some impartations of spirit. Like, that changes the frequency, and this frequency you're sensitive to because you literally directly communicate with me as one, because there's no other communication. This is the same, I could say, because that makes us equals, that when you receive an impartation of spirit, in fact it communicates with the ones that resonate with you, the ones that are in communication with you. And yeah, so this is a beautiful way to look at it, and I actually see it at work. Because what happens if I get an impartation of spirit and nobody seems to be around? Now, is that impartation lost? No, not at all. Now, the impartations that you receive, you could say, actually put you to work in a certain sense. Because if you receive something, then you know you did. You cannot ignore it. So I give this example. It's like when you're in a certain situation that refers to this impartation, to a new thing that came to you, so to speak, and you're denying it in your expression of yourself, then at a certain point you feel like a little tap on your shoulder. As a reminder, like, hello, this is the moment. It's like, you're not going to do the same thing as you did before. No, you have received something. So this is what I call then the practical application. So it's not really a doing on your part. It's more like your consciousness received it. You received that because you are consciousness. Your consciousness received this impartation. Now you can try to deny it, but you will not be able to do that without noticing it, without being reminded of it, like the little tap on your shoulder. And this is a simple way to deal with this and still be in a relationship of equality, because that's, to me, what is happening. I can say, like, well, here I'm the teacher, or this or that, or Joel is the teacher, or who knows what. Like, in fact, we receive this as one. And okay, we're not equal in time, sure, but still, like, when you receive an impartation, it literally communicates with the sonship. So that's to the benefit of all, you could say. And it's, in a certain sense, it is not special, or it is not. No, it's something that you rely on. You don't want your own ideas to circulate. You don't want to keep doing the same thing. You don't want to sow to the flesh, as Joel mentions in this talk a lot too. Like, sowing to the flesh doesn't mean that you're performing sinful acts or something. It's not about that. It is more sowing to the flesh is literally believing that there is a world, believing that this world can do something with you, believing that you are, say, a victim of this world or occurrences in this world. No, so that is like sowing to the flesh, thinking that there's such thing as time, thinking that there's a timeline in which you come closer and closer to the end of it, believing that there's such thing as death. And all this, all this is part of that. In fact, what isn't. Your belief that continues, your investment in that. Now Joel comes back to that, sowing to the flesh or sowing to spirit. And sowing to spirit, then, immediately we're back in the listening modus of receiving impartations. Now, how many times a day does that happen? It really depends how open you are to receive it, because in fact you're in communication with spirit continuously. It's not that you have to wait for a response or anything. No, that's a continuous process, a continuous act, because God doesn't stop giving to you. Now, how do I know this? Like, how do you know things? How do you know this? Because of these impartations of spirit. That makes you certain about certain happenings, while you might never have read about it. But there's an inner knowing that gives you a sense of peace continuously when you allow that to be your information, when you allow spirit to be your informer, your inspirator, your guide. So that's really great. So in that sense, what I mean to say is this, is like it's natural that it occurs, and that you listen to it, and that you let yourself be guided by it. And you get all the chances to learn, because if you don't listen, you get the consequences of that. When you start to sow through the flesh, you get the result in the flesh. And so that's a lesson. If that keeps coming back, you didn't learn that lesson yet. So now it's like, okay, who do you want to be your guide? Where are you investing in? Is that in the flesh, in matter, in longevity, or in time, in all that? Or are you willing to allow yourself to wake up literally out of that bind of human destiny, and wake up to seeking the kingdom first, and not waiting for anything else, but just going for that. Like, yes, seek first the kingdom, and now what? Yeah, now nothing. You go first, seek the kingdom. All is given. When you come there, like when you come into the experience of the kingdom, you know everything is given. And so there's no follow-up in that sense. There's no result to that. Now here's a good point, because I really love to share this too, and you're very familiar with it. I'm not telling you anything you don't know, because you already received that impartation when I did. This is the great thing of selfless action. Why is selfless action then so important? Because, in fact, selfless action doesn't need to disturb your peace at all. No, it actually contributes to your peace. And it's like you, at least you as a human being, do things for a certain reason, with a certain purpose. You want to achieve something. You have a motivation for your actions. Now in God, there's no such thing as motivated action. There's no goal to achieve, since the creation is complete, is whole and perfect. It does not need to change. It does not adapt, it does not compare, it does not compete, and none of these things that you do with your human mind. Now here is the opportunity then. In my awakening, I see that my thoughts and ideas I hold about myself are not truly who I am. And that cannot be described with my ideas. It cannot be described with images, with matter, with form. So there's something else going on. Now, in order to discover what that really is, awakening, you could say, is so far you've seen yourself as the one who is dreaming, but that's not the whole thing. So you're not only the one that's dreaming, but also the whole dream. What is the importance of knowing that? Well, in fact, that is the bubble that you believe yourself to be in, the construct of your own mind. In fact, the part that you think that you're maybe not even feel that you're in charge, but at least it is your dream. It's your individual dream with which you identify as it being you. Waking out of that is letting go of that idea, letting go of the construct, and seeing it for what it is. It's mesmerism. It tells me nothing about the truth of who I am. The truth of who I am doesn't need to be described. There's no image, there's no form, it's beingness. Joel says this many times, it's beingness. Now, back to selfless action. Selfless action takes, in fact, the attention of you and your motivated actions. So here it is like you do something for, in fact, no reason for you. You are available. You are willing to do something only for the reason that it has to be done. It's being asked. It is given to you to do it. Now, for no reason, there's no credit to get from it. There's no, there's nothing there, in fact, to bring that back to you as an accomplishment, as a reward. That was the word I was looking for, like as a reward. Or no, it's just the selfless action. Anyone could do it, but here you are, and why not do it? So why is that so important to do actions like these? I'll tell you a little story, and then I'll get to Joel. I'll tell you a little story. So I signed up as a volunteer for the Miracles Healing Center that I just got in touch with in 2000 something, like very early days. And I'd like, okay, yeah, I want to do voluntary work. Yeah, that would be great. So the first day I show up in the healing center, and somebody handed me like a tissue and some copper cleanse, and said, well, here's some copper work on the doors. We want you to polish that. And I said, sure, yeah, I want to do that. I'm a motivated volunteer here. Yes, let me do that. So walking over to the door, I see that the door and the copper work is in perfect shape, like absolutely spotless. So immediately I returned back to the one who gave me the equipment to work with. And then I heard like, no, this is not about accomplishment. This is not about achieving a certain goal or anything. No, this is just to get in the modus of giving yourself away. Just give yourself away with no reason to do it. But still, the reason is you coming into the action of giving, and with no motivation other than just doing that. And that was very disruptive for me. It's like, wow, that's amazing. But then I started simply doing it, and actually loved it for not having any reason for it. Just for, like, it doesn't need to disturb my relationship with God. Like, it doesn't need to stop the communication that I experience myself in. Nothing can disturb that. So what is the motivation for this world? If I have a motivation for this world and for the elements in it, I'm literally valuing it for the function it fulfills for me. Hence, there's a world. So in order to become free of that idea of a world and of a dream, selfless action is very helpful. I'm not saying that you have to start doing that, but I'm saying this is like, I could not have awoken out of my dream without doing that. Seeing that you can just do something that someone's asking just for the sake of it has to be done, with no asking for reward or any kind of credit or whatever. It's like, no, just doing that. So I thought that was really great to mention this, because it's like sowing to the spirit is literally staying inspired, despite of whatever meaningless activity you are performing. Meaningless in the sense of, in the world it might have meaning, but in my new experience of myself, it doesn't have any meaning. I'm also not looking for a meaning there or any value there, but I can still do things. But it's like there's so much, there's always so much, there are so many impartations to share. It's unbelievable. And yeah. So this is one that I shared in the invitation for this week too, in the email. You will not find God through the human mind. As you work now with this understanding of karma, sowing and reaping, now remember that for enlightenment, you have to open your consciousness to receive the impartations of spirit. Then will your spiritual life begin. See, and Joel says it here in one sentence, you will not find God through the human mind. So this is why I went into that a little deeper by giving it the name of dream, by giving it the name of form of sowing to the flesh, in fact. Like, you will not find God through your human mind. The thing with your human mind is that you think that you are separate from your dream while you're actually dreaming the dream. So that makes all the difference. So you, in other words, I'll bring it back. So in other words, you cannot distinguish yourself from what you are dreaming. What I mean with dreaming is what you experience in your daily life. You cannot separate yourself from it. It's literally a manifestation of your ideas. You're the source of what you see. Now, that's only in a dream, because you are, you could say, God is your source. You're not your own source. So those two conflict only in your mind, not in God's mind. So those two conflict with each other as long as you believe that you are, like, this is yours. This is your dream. Now that makes a lot of a difference. If I bring that back to myself and recognize God is my source. I'm an effect of God. I'm not God himself. No, it's like God's within me. Basically, he created me. I did not create God. I made a dream. If I don't maintain that dream, it falls apart, and it never was. Now, this is what I mean with waking up, then. It's in fact allowing that dream to fall apart and come back to your true essence. This is why I say too, seek first the kingdom. Now I seek the kingdom. Here's the kingdom. Where's my dream? It's gone. The dream is gone. And do I miss something? Everything is here. Entering the kingdom is not missing something. It's the completion. It's completed all the time. It is the fulfillment. It is my happiness without opposite. It's my joy. It's my peace. It's my freedom. It's my light. It's my love without opposite. There's no conflict connected to it. Can that be called a limitation? No. Is there a lack in God's being God's extension? No, of course not. So this is really, really interesting how Joel posted that. That's always for me very interesting to take a look at. Like, you will not find God through the human mind. Now you know why. It's like, that makes total sense. the moment that you do not connect supply with your living, then your activity, your work, your art, your business, your profession becomes such a joy that you're giving yourself to it. You are sowing to the Spirit, and supply then may come through that avenue, and it may come through many, many others. It doesn't matter anymore. So this is a bit like in the direction of the selfless action. So if you disconnect it from supply, and disconnect the idea of supply with your living, your activity. It's like if you don't do it, so to speak, for an idea of money or an idea of credit, getting credit, or an idea of if you don't do it for any other reason than just because it's inspired, it's given to you to do, then it becomes very easy. Then it is no effort. Then it's fun, because you don't do it really. It's like it's inspired, so it's given you to do that. There's no resistance to it of, I have to go back to my work and of I gotta do this and I gotta do that. Thinking that there's an opposing force at work here that makes you do things. It's like, why? What would be your motivation to do it anyway then? Now here you break it open, and here there's a new idea to look at that, and that is you don't connect it to the idea of supply. It's not, there's no reciprocity really going on. And is that a practical view in this world? Because this world seems to be based on the idea of reciprocity. Yes, but you are not this world. You just recognize that this is a dream, that supply comes from God in your recognition of your wholeness, not of anything else. Like you think the whole universe will not support you while it created every aspect in it. You think the universe is not supporting you. Why would you think that? It's like there's no reason to. Of course, there's a moment in which you make in fact, you start to rely on the universe to support you. But that's taken care of. It's not something that works by finally the universe is ready for you. No, it's like, no, that is already given. The universe gives you everything all the time. Now, what can you possibly lack except in your own construct? You can be as poor as you want. You can be lacking anything. You can be as sick as you want. You can be, go ahead, in conflict as much as you want. You can be in pain as much as you want. Not necessary. And here was the reason why. Here's the reason why. The universe gives you everything all the time. Okay, so maybe one more expression, one more impartation. Do you not see what I mean by sowing to the flesh, you reap corruption? It has nothing to do with your personal sins and mine. Never let me omit mine. They are due to the fact that we were born into this sowing to the flesh. Therefore, this became a pleasure of the flesh, and this became a pain of the flesh, and this became desirable to the flesh, and this became undesirable to the flesh. And all we've done is cater to the flesh. So it's like what Joel says here is like the whole dream. The whole dream is based on sowing to the flesh. Like you were born into flesh, this thing. It's like you were born into it. You were made to believe that this is you. You were pointed at like, hey, there's you and there's me. And so like that whole story was made real in your experience of yourself, but it had nothing to do with reality. So all the consequences of sin, pain, lack, limitation, you name it, are all based on an idea that is not true. Now, you, the believer of these ideas, as well as the ideas, are not true. So that means that if I leave them, I release them, I let them go, I want something else, you could say, I shift, I ask for healing, I come to the recognition that Spirit is living my life, and I seek for the kingdom and find the kingdom within myself, then I know that none of that has ever occurred and had no effect whatsoever. Here I am, and here I give selflessly, because the universe is what giving is. God literally only gives. So in your selfless actions, then, you in fact demonstrate that to yourself, not to anyone else. It's not that you have to have proof of it, that it works, but still you come to learn that. You come to the experience that that is what is going on. All right, so I'll set up Joel and we're going to listen to him. And it is Transcendental Consciousness that we're listening to, 523B, I think it is. So let's listen to that.
Good morning.
Good morning.
In talking to you, you must understand now that I'm not giving a lecture, nor even a closed class, but I am speaking primarily to you who have been students of the Infinite Way for a long, long time. Many of you active in the practice, in the healing work, and some of you at least starting it. And therefore, I must bring to your attention the fact that you are engaged in a work that must inevitably set you apart from the rest of the people of the world. Well, it either will or you will not get too far in your spiritual development. Because you are not engaged in the study of a teaching so much as you are beginning to attain the fruitage of your search for truth. If you think back a few years in your experience, try to remember what it was that brought you into this particular message, the Infinite Way. Whether it was primarily for a healing or some other aspect of greater humanhood, better humanhood, or whether it was an actual desire, search, reaching out for reality, for truth, for God. Also, if when you came into this work some years ago, your main idea was healing or human improvement, whether or not your attitude has changed since then, whether or not you realize that merely improving your health or the amount of your supply is insignificant in comparison with the idea of actually finding the secret of life that is behind the appearance, behind what you see, hear, taste, touch, and smell. If you can realize, or if you have realized by now, that there is a great secret behind this world, a secret unknown to any of the religions, unknown to any of the philosophies, unknown to any man whose breath is in his nostril, a secret of life that no man can know with his mind. Would make no difference what he studies or where he goes to study. This secret he will never discover. That is why so few have entered in. In the ages up to the present, most people have sought and expected of religions human betterment, and probably a promise for something great after they die. Because the future is feared by most people. I mean, the future, the time beyond this immediate life, what is called after death. Most people look to that experience with horror, with fear, with dread, and with good reason, because most of the religions have presented that period as a period of punishment, as a period of getting the punishments that you did not receive here on earth, and with the vague hope that at some far distant time there might be a heaven. And even the nature of heaven as it is described, by now you know that if you attain that, it would be hell. By now you must have discovered that there's nothing more monotonous than sitting and playing a harp all day and being happy. But the teachings of the world have not gone beyond seeking truth through the mind, seeking truth through books, seeking truth through teachings, and of course, until you arrive at that place in consciousness where you realize that you never are going to find the truth, you haven't even begun your journey. Your journey, your spiritual journey, only begins when you come to the realization that going on as you have been going, you never are going to learn the truth, the secret behind this universe, because it is not to be known with the mind or through the mind. While it is true that you do not know what the word spirit means, nevertheless, God is spirit. And that in itself means that God is something that you do not know or understand. And since you have been searching almost a lifetime, it must get to be discouraging. And it is discouraging, because inevitably that realization does come. I never am going to discover God or Spirit. And my search is frustrating. And what have I to look forward to? When you reach that point, you may be starting on your spiritual journey, because you will have reached that place where you can say, "Speak, Lord, thy servant heareth," and mean it. And really mean it, that if you do not speak, and if I do not hear what you say, there is going to be no answer. When you reach that place, it actually means that you have come to the end of faith and hope and belief that the human mind is ever going to reveal spiritual truth to you. And in one of our classes many years ago, we had that for a title: "Abandon hope, all ye who enter here." Abandon hope of finding God, all you who enter this class, because in this class you will not find Him. In this message you will not find Him. And the reason is that the kingdom of God is within you. Now, at this point in consciousness where you are, where I am speaking to you, you do know that God is not going to be revealed to you in the words that I speak or the words that you hear. The only opportunity of God being revealed to you in our relationship is in what my consciousness can impart and your consciousness can receive, independent of words and thoughts. In other words, there must be a relationship between us that transcends words and thoughts. There must be a state of consciousness that can receive that which an attained spiritual consciousness can impart. The teacher can impart it without words or thoughts, but as a rule will use the means of words and thoughts and let the Spirit in between do the actual imparting, that is, carry the import of the message. Now, I'm leading up to that for this reason. I knew when Thunder of Silence was published that I could not expect many people in the world to understand it or grasp it, not even our students. And I didn't expect it. I still don't expect it for many, many, many years to come. And the reason is that from the very start of it, the message it gives contradicts the entire teaching of Christianity. It's a complete contradiction of all that is to be found in Christianity. Because every Christian teaching is based on God's goodness to you and God's punishment to the sinner. And probably some of you have lived long enough to find out that God has not been too good to you. And probably some of you have discovered that God doesn't really punish the bad sinners at all. they seem to go scot-free. Once in a while, one of them gets caught up with the law and gets sent to jail, but God doesn't seem to have anything to do with that. It's the police department. As a thinker, this must puzzle you. As a thinker, you must be startled by realizing how many sweet, loving, wonderful, good, charitable people there are in the world whom God is not rewarding. And it must amaze you at the amount of evil people there are in the world that not only the law hasn't reached yet, but even God hasn't put his finger on. And as a thinker, you must ponder this. You must. You have to give time and effort and thought to this and wonder about it, and then wonder if maybe the church's explanation is a valid one, that if you don't get punished here, don't worry, you'll get punished somewhere else. Not that anyone has come back to prove their point, that there is a hell or a limbo or any other place where you get punished afterward. I don't even know that the spiritualists have ever had messages from the other side saying that there's a very hot fire anywhere to burn you up. Haven't heard of any such messages. And so it is that the longer you seek the answer with your mind, the more frustrating this is going to be. And if you do not have an answer to it, you may be assured that not only your frustration in life will continue, but the solution to life's problem will not be given you. It is for this reason that those who were present when that first unfoldment came through my lips witnessed the fact that what came through my lips was not anything that I had known even 5 minutes before. It was something that came through and startled me as much as it did any of those who were listening who caught it. And be assured, I had to do a great deal of thinking and meditating after that message came through to realize the astounding nature of what it was. And I even said afterward, I hope there were no reporters present, because if that message that had come through were reported in the papers, I'm sure the churches would have done to me what they did to some of the ancient revelators. Because that day, the message that came through said, God neither punishes nor rewards. And you search the literature of the world and see what a startling message that is. How it refutes the religious teachings of most of the world and all of the Western world. Since God neither punishes nor rewards, and remember, I'm always now on the book Thunder of Silence. Since God neither punishes nor rewards, and since, as we have found, there is a certain amount of punishment and reward that goes on in this world, what is the answer? And the answer that came through was, that what the Hindus call karmic law is the answer. That which Jesus called, as ye sow, so shall ye reap. And you see, whether you quote the Orient or whether you quote Jesus, you throw all Christian teachings out the window. Because if it is as ye sow that ye reap, then it has nothing to do with God on either the punishment side or the reward side. It has to do with a law that you set in motion. And when we go to Brother Paul, we find him receiving that same revelation from the Christ. If you sow to the Spirit, you reap life everlasting. If you sow to the flesh, you reap corruption. So here we have it in the basic Christian teaching, as ye sow, so shall ye reap, and please leave God out of it. Unfortunately, the basic Christian teaching was not incorporated into the Christian church. It is for this reason that Dr. Jung was able to write that he had never had a case of a person over 35 years of age who had been healed through his ministry without a return to basic religion, but not the religion of the churches. Nor had he ever had a failure of healing in a person over 35 years of age that could not be traced to the fact that they would not return to a basic religious teaching. But he emphasized not a teaching of the churches. Now, why does he make that distinction? Because the teaching that he gave to the world in his later years came to him through a revelation. The teaching in the earlier years came through his medical studies. But in the later years, he had a spiritual revelation. And then he discovered that a return to basic religion, and he said any of the basic religious teachings, Oriental or Occidental, as long as you remained with the original teachings of the original revelators. And of course, here is one of the reasons that through revelation, through revelation you learn the nature of God. And then you will discover, when you know the nature of God, that there is nothing in that nature that either punishes or rewards. Let us for a moment think of God as life, the life of the universe, the life, let us say, of all nature, as well as our own lives. And since God is from everlasting to everlasting, the nature of God must be eternity, infinity. There could be nothing in the nature of God that would shorten the life of man or the universe. Therefore, the life of man must be eternal and immortal. Well, right here, of course, you have no punishment, because all of our sins and diseases and deaths are supposed to be due to punishments. All our accidents, all of the evils that befall us are supposed to be due to punishment of one nature. God's will, it is called. God's will that an airplane collapse with 100 people on board. God's will that a steamship burn up at sea or hit an iceberg. But do you not see that that was not in the original teaching of Jesus Christ? Do you not see, if you go back to the Gospels, that you cannot find God that destroys life for any reason, since Jesus' mission was to raise the dead, and his mission was to do the works of God, show forth eternal life. It was to heal the sick, even to forgive sinners. So God could not have provided a punishment for sinners and forgiveness at the same time. Therefore, if you go back to the basic teaching of Jesus Christ, you will discover that there is no punishment through God and no reward through God, and that it is as you sow that you reap. And of course, when you go to the Oriental teachings where they have karma, you will also discover that it is your sowing that results in your reaping, and the reaping goes on until the sowing changes. Now, if you can catch solidly, firmly, this revelation in Thunder of Silence, and actually bear witness to the fact, come to a conviction within yourself that you can leave God right out of your calculations, leave God right out of your thinking right now, insofar as your rewards and punishments are concerned, or insofar as your health or sickness is concerned, or your life and death. Leave God out for a moment and see if we cannot grasp this principle, that it is as ye sow that ye reap. And then make the acknowledgement, regardless of where I am in life, regardless of what experience I may now be having, somewhere or other there is a sowing in my consciousness that is responsible for a reaping. And let's see if we can't find it. If we can grasp this teaching of the infinite way, we are halfway home. Because if you are still seeking around in your mind, hoping for a God to do something or change something, you are still back in orthodoxy. You're still waiting for that which is not going to happen. Whatever is going to happen is going to happen as an activity of your consciousness. Now, of course, in a half hour, I am covering a subject that you could not possibly resolve in your consciousness within a year or two. You would have to take this half hour of work and spend a year or two, if you haven't already, until you do come to the full realization of the nature, of the startling nature of what I'm saying to you, that at this moment doesn't seem startling to you at all. The only reason it doesn't is because you haven't grasped it. Then, when you reach that, the rest is going to be easy, because I will tell you a secret of something that is operating in the back of your consciousness unnecessarily and causing you distress. There is still a belief in your thought that some act of commission or omission on your part is responsible for your discords or inharmonies. And there again, that is where the church has led you completely astray, because the church is 100% in error in telling you that any sin of yours is responsible for the woes that you may have experienced or may be experiencing or ever think you may experience. Be assured it isn't that way at all, and you might just as well forgive yourself right now and forget about your past sins or present ones of commission or omission. Drop out of your thought right now that it was any error of yours. Remember, when I speak this way now, I am telling you what you must be holding in thought about your patients and students. Do not forget that I'm not speaking primarily to you who already have come a great part of the way along this path. I am reminding you of what you must be revealing to your patients and students in order to free them from their guilt complexes and from the belief that they should be expecting a reward for the good things they've done in life, or punishment for the bad things that they may have done, or the good things they left undone. You have got to set them free. You perhaps have been, in a great measure, already set free by your studies and work. But remember, I am merely giving this to you so that you may complete your demonstration and that you may have the full awareness of dealing with those who come to you. Now, what is the sowing and the reaping that is causing the distresses of the people on earth? Well, Paul summed it up, and we will have to do what he probably did that never got into print. We will have to explain it. He merely stated it. To those around him, he may have explained it, but it never was printed. If you sow to the Spirit, you will reap life everlasting. If you sow to the flesh, you will reap corruption. That's the statement. And the explanation is this. You were born into a material sense of life. Therefore, you have been sowing to the flesh all of your human life. In other words, you have put your entire hope, faith, confidence in form or effect. We have been brought up naturally to believe that money was supply. And it is this teaching that really causes all of the lack and limitation on earth. Because whether you believe that money is supply or crops, it's equally an error. Consciousness is supply, spirit is supply, the invisible is supply. That over which you have no control, but that which can, when you permit it, control you, govern you.
thank you for your presence today, and hope to see you next week. Like I said, we're playing a couple of songs, and then we wish each other a good day, good rest of the day, or a good night. And so thank you for being present here today. Thank you so much.